The Amato family lived at 2112 Sultan Circle Street in a town called Chilwater, Florida. Margaret, 61, and Chad, 59, were married and had 3 children. Jason, the eldest, was Margaret's son from a previous relationship. Chad became his stepdad when he was 3 years old. After they were married, there was a second child, Cody, in 1987, and then Grant in 1989. Chilwater is an ancient city, but at the time it had just about 2,400 inhabitants. It is known even today as the land of lakes and pines, a really beautiful and peaceful place to live, which is about 40 kilometers from the capital Orlando, far enough away from the biggest city and classified as rural. In 2019, the year the story takes place, Jason was living in Winter Springs, Florida, and working at a mortgage loan office. Chad and Margaret Amato had worked hard all their lives and were about to retire. Chad was a pharmacist, and Margaret worked at an information technology company. They lived in a spacious 4-bedroom house situated on a beautifully located plot of land. The couple even had recently purchased another home in Tennessee, where they planned to move when they retired. The Amatos were a close-knit family who loved football. They never missed a game from their favorite team and used to gather on the couch in their parents' living room to watch the championship finals. After her family, Margaret's greatest love was horses. In her free time, she usually went to a stable in town where she looked after Lady, a former race horse who was abandoned and rescued in 2009. The woman certainly had a kind, caring, and charitable soul. When Lady died, she continued to frequent the stables, helping to care for the horses as she enjoyed being around the animals. They had a calming effect on her, something she sorely needed, especially in the year 2018, when the situation at home was getting more and more tense. Brothers Grant and Cody Amato did everything together. They weren't just brothers, they were best friends. The two went to high school at Timber Creek High School, where they were on the weightlifting team. When they graduated, the two enrolled in nursing school, hoping to get a degree in nursing and then specialize as anesthesiologists. The pair dreamed of buying BMWs and living in the family home in Chilwater when their parents retired and moved to Tennessee, but things didn't go as planned. The brothers eventually graduated to nursing, but while Cody thrived in the profession, Grant was a failure. As planned, the two signed up for a course to become anesthesiologists. Cody passed, but Grant didn't. In June 2018, Grant was fired from his job at the local hospital for stealing medication. He was caught with large amounts of anesthetic propofol. This medicine can only be used with a medical prescription because it is very potent and its long-term use can cause a decrease in the level of consciousness and poor memory. Just to complement, this medicine was the same one used by Michael Jackson in 2009 that resulted in his death. Returning to the case, Grant was arrested and charged with theft. He was also accused of improperly administering medication to patients. Questioned by the hospital authorities, he stated that he administered the medicine because the patients were not properly relaxed. As a result of his firing, Grant became increasingly isolated and depressed. He began spending endless hours in his room, sleeping during the day and staying up all night, playing on his computer and streaming live. Along with his mental health, his physical health also deteriorated. His parents said he had lost weight and looked like a corpse with the red circles under his eyes and pale skin. In the online world, Grant became a professional gambler and claimed to be rich and single, saying he had his own house and a BMW. Of course, what this group of online friends didn't know was that Grant was actually a 29-year-old unemployed nurse who lived with his parents and didn't have his own car. Sylvia Venceslavova was a Bulgarian model for a camgirls website that Grant called Sylvie. The woman had become the most important person in his life, and every night, he spent hours watching Sylvie perform on webcam. Each transmission cost $9 per minute, and Grant even paid $600 in one night to see the woman showing off without clothes on the other side of the screen. And since he was unemployed and had no money, he used his parents' credit card. It didn't take long and he started giving Sylvie gifts, sending her many items like adult toys and lingerie. Grant saw Sylvie as his girlfriend. Although she didn't reciprocate those feelings, she appreciated his generosity and, of course, his money. What Sylvie didn't know was that the money wasn't his. After maxing out his parents' credit card, Grant began stealing from his brother. In just 3 months, he spent over $200 of his family's money to satisfy his obsession with Sylvie. Chastised by his parents, he lied, saying he was using the money to promote himself as a gamer on the live streaming site Twitch. He even recorded a video for Sylvie begging her to send him a video for free.
Alright, Sylvia, look at me. I am outside going to check the mail. And I'm asking you if you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I love it so much when you just send them to me. Yeah, I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one though?
Grant Amato didn't deserve the family he had. Despite months of lying and stealing, the family continued to protect and support him. Chad took out a second mortgage on his home to pay off the debt accrued by Grant, as well as his legal expenses from the drug theft charges. Around the same time, he discovered that Grant had forged his documents and was trying to take out a loan in his name. He never reported this to anyone because he didn't want his son to get into more legal trouble. A few months later, in December, things seemed to be calming down. The theft charges against him were dropped after a settlement with the hospital's lawyers. So Cody decided to invite Grant and another friend on a trip to Japan. He paid all expenses, about $10,000. Japan was a great passion of Grant, and maybe Cody did it to try to keep his brother on track. But when they returned from the trip, Grant and his father began fighting almost daily over the lifestyle he wanted to lead without having a job. On December 19, 2018, Grant moved out of the house after a tense argument with his father. He texted his mother that he was very tired of everything and would now take care of things his way. Deeply concerned, Margaret reported Grant missing to the police, explaining that he had been having strong self-defeating feelings. The boy went to the house of his aunt, Donna Amato, in Apopka, a city in Florida that is about 70 kilometers from Chilliwatta. Donna said her nephew looked thin and exhausted. She took him in and he spent the whole day sleeping and the whole night awake. A few days later, Donna started to notice several charges in her bank account from a Kangaroo's website where Grant was talking to Sylvie. Donna called Chad, telling him what he was doing. Chad begged her not to press charges. Cody got on the phone and said he would pay off his brother's entire debt. Donna was confused, and just when she thought things couldn't get any weirder, Chad Amato burst into tears on the phone. He told her about all the pain Grant had been causing him the last few months and how much it took to pay off his debts. He said he couldn't retire in a few months as he had planned and would have to work at least another 2 years to be able to pay off his son's debts. Chad still stated that he was tired, but he couldn't let his son be arrested. On December 22, 2018, Chad, Margaret, Jason, and Cody resolved to put an end to the situation. They went to Donna's house and told Grant that he needed professional help and that they would take him to a rehab center in Fort Lauderdale. Grant accepted and signed up for a 60-day program for his addiction to adult content. However, he fled the center 2 weeks later on January 4, 2019. Cody had paid $15,000 for his brother's treatment. While Grant was in rehab, Cody accessed his brother and contacted Sylvie, saying that his brother had lied to her and that all the money he had spent was actually stolen from his family. Upon learning of this, Sylvie said that she would no longer communicate with Grant. Cody also deleted everything on his brother's computer and changed his internet password. On January 5th, Cody took Grant to the California Pizza Kitchen in Waterford Lakes for lunch and conversation. At the restaurant, Cody put out of his pocket a handwritten list of rules Grant would have to abide if he wanted to continue living in the family home. The rules stated that he had to stop spending all night online and get a job. His parents would no longer pay his phone bill, he would have to pay his family debts, and he would have to go to therapy. He was also no longer allowed to communicate with Sylvie, and if he was caught doing so, he would be kicked out of the house immediately. If Grant didn't agree to these terms, he would either have to leave his parents' home or enlist in the army. On January 25, 2019, Cody Amato didn't go to work at Orlando Medical Center. His co-workers were sure that something had gone wrong, as he had never missed a day of work in the last 5 years. They called the police and asked if they could check the Amato family home. At approximately 9:20 a.m., Seminole County Sheriff Todd Mulderson and 2 colleagues arrived at the home. He knocked on the front door several times, but no one answered. The house was eerily silent, despite several lights on, even though it was a sunny day. The officer contacted the sheriff's department to gain clearance to enter the home. When authorized, the police broke into a side door with a knife. Inside, lying in the doorway that led to the garage in a fetal position, was Cody Amato, wearing his nursing uniform. He had been shot below the eye. A gun was about 5 feet from his body. Next to him in the kitchen, police found the body of Chad Amato. He was lying face down with 2 shots to the head. The man was wearing a hip holster with a gun inside. Margaret Amato was in her office, hunched over her desk with a gunshot to her head. Grant Amato was nowhere to be seen and his cell phone had been turned off. The next morning, January 26, detectives tracked Grant's car and discovered he was at a hotel. The police called his apartment, told him about the crime and asked him to come to the police station to give a statement. He agreed and denied knowing anything about the death of his parents and brother. In the interview, he seemed calm and relaxed, talked about his passion for football, his online games, and complained about his family, saying that his father was an authoritarian and abusive man who physically abused him, including stating that he beat his mother and his other siblings for no reason. But he admitted that he was spending the family money on a cam girl from Bulgaria. Detectives found it impressive that after 3 hours of being interviewed, Grant never once asked what happened to his family. So they decided to show him the crime scene and he was visibly moved. Jason, Grant's older brother, went to speak with him in the interrogation room, but he continued to deny having anything to do with the murders. He begged his brother to tell the truth, but Grant didn't say anything else. At this point, the 2 brothers were suspects, but Jason had a strong alibi. He was several kilometers away from his parents' house at the time of the crime. According to Grant, on January 24, he was at home all day preparing for a job interview. When his father returned from work, they started to argue because his father found out that he was talking to Sylvia on Twitter, using his mother's cell phone, and because of that, he was kicked out of the house. Grant said he packed his thing and he was leaving. Chad stopped him in the garage. They talked for another hour and a half. He then gave him his credit card and asked him to spend the night at a hotel. In the meantime, Cody came home, said goodbye to his mother, and left. It was midnight on January 25th, stating that when he last saw his family, they were all alive. The boy also stated that when he left the house, he went to a local grocery store, used the store's Wi-Fi to record the location of his job interview the next day, and stayed in the parking lot, where he ended up falling asleep. According to him, he woke up around 6:45 a.m. and went to the hotel, where the police called for the interview. Despite Grant's insistence that he was not responsible for his family's death, no one believed him. Police began questioning everyone who had been in contact with Grant in recent days and had spoken to Cody's girlfriend, Sloan Young. She told detectives that Grant stole about $60,000 from his brother, in addition to his guns, to sell them. The girl also said that days before he died, Cody expressed the fear that Grant was becoming more and more unbalanced and could kill everyone. On January 28, Grant was arrested and charged with first-degree premeditated murder. He pleaded not guilty to all charges. While awaiting his trial, he was held in the Seminole County Jail. On July 23, 2019, his trial began. If Grant was convicted, there was a possibility he would get the death penalty. There was no sign of forced entry into the Amato home, and all of the family's valuables were in the house. The sheriff's office built a timeline of what really happened on the day of the crime, based on various testimonies and evidence found throughout the investigation. According to this assembled line, the following happened. Grant Amato spent January 24th at home with his mother, Margaret. The last access on her computer was at 4:40 p.m. With that information, The prosecution deduced that Grant shot Margaret at around 4:45 p.m. when she was sitting at her desk. At 5:25, a walking app on Chad's iPhone recorded 67 steps to his car. Then his phone went dead when he entered the house. Chad's first headshot didn't kill him. There was a trail of blood on the floor that suggested that he tried to crawl, presumably towards the phone after being shot. He only died after taking a second shot in the head. At 5:50, Chad's iPhone was unlocked and the settings were changed. Grant then waited for Cody to come home from work. He arrived around 9:15 p.m. that same day. As soon as he entered the house, his brother shot him in the face. A neighbor of the family testified that she heard shots between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m. She didn't know exactly how many shots were fired, but there were at least 5. At 11:32 p.m., a USB stick with over 600 photos and videos of Sylvie was inserted into Grant's computer. This flash drive would later be found by investigators in the pocket of his jeans inside the car. At 11:39 p.m., Cody's iPhone was connected to Grant's computer, but the process didn't complete, suggesting whoever had connected the phone didn't know the password. 3 minutes later, the phone was factory reset. At midnight 8, Chad's banking application was accessed using his biometric fingerprint. Investigators noticed that Chad's right index finger was less bloody than the other fingers, suggesting that it had been cleaned, which supported the theory. At 2:54 a.m., Grant accessed the Wi-Fi. At 3:06 a.m., he paid $600 to reopen his account on the campgirl's website. Grant then modified the crime scene to make it look like his brother killed his parents and then killed himself, which would explain the gun near Cody's body. Grant placed the empty rounds strategically around the crime scene, corresponding to the number of times each victim had been shot. The prosecutor theorized that he holstered the gun on Chad's right hip to make it look like he had clashed with Cody. However, it was a cross holster, and Chad was right-handed, so he was supposed to wear it on his left hip. Also, people who knew Chad said he didn't walk around the house with a gun in his belt. The police officers who responded to the incident that day testified that Chad's body appeared to have been moved. Chad was shot in the back of the head, which means he would have been lying on his stomach, but he was lying on his side. There were 2 pools of blood underneath Cody, one bigger than the other. The larger one was closer to his ankles and feet, while the smaller one was under his head, where he had been shot. This suggested that he too had been moved, as the largest pool of blood must have been below where he had been shot. A Florida Police Department firearms expert testified that none of the guns found in the home, of which there were 3, were used in the killings. He also said that the bullets found near the bodies, which prosecutors claimed Grant had planted, were not from the weapon that killed them. The medical examiner said Cody was not shot at close range. If he had shot himself, the report would have shown that he had been shot at close range. Margaret and Chad were shot at close range. The coroner further said that the crime scene strongly indicated that all 3 deaths were the result of premeditated homicide. Blake Turpin was friends with Cody and Grant for over a decade. He said his 9mm pistol was stolen from a closet in his bedroom. However, he didn't realize it was gone until several months later, as he rarely used it. When he realized it was gone, he reported it missing to the police. The bullets that killed the Amato family members were from a 9mm gun. However, it was never recovered to be sure if Grant stole it to kill his parents. To bolster the charges against Grant, the prosecution showed a letter he had written to his online friends, 6 men with whom he spent much of his time gaming on Twitch. In the letter, which was written sometime between January 4th and January 24th, 2019, Grant told his friends that everything he told them about his life was made up. He also expressed his anger towards his family for a variety of reasons. Grant's brother, Jason, testified for the prosecution about relationships between their family members in the months leading up to the murders. It was a very emotional testimony. Jason told the court about the ultimatum Cody had given Grant and the list of rules he had to follow if he wanted to continue living at home. The last time he saw his parents and brother was on the morning of December 22nd, when they went to his aunt's house to convince his brother to be admitted. Jason was asked if his father was abusive to him or his siblings. While Chad could be very strict, he wasn't abusive. They got spanked a few times when they were kids, but Jason never thought of it as abuse. At the end of his testimony, one of the attorneys asked him if he loved Grant. He said he loved his two brothers and started to cry. The defense team said detectives charged Grant too quickly and never explored other possibilities. They argued that Grant had no motive to kill his parents and brother. He got along well with his mother, and he and his brother were extremely close. Also, his family always gave him money when he needed it. Despite all the accusations, there was no physical evidence of Grant's presence at the time of the crime. No family DNA and no firearm residue were found on him. But it is worth remembering that he was only found 36 hours after the crime, which would give more than enough time for him to get rid of any evidence that would incriminate him. Finally, on July 31, 2019, after 8 hours of deliberation, the jury found Grant Amato guilty of first-degree premeditated murder of his father, mother, and brother. On August 12, the jury recommended that Grant be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which would mean he would avoid the death penalty. Grant Amato is currently incarcerated at Madison Correctional Facility in Florida. Alright folks, so that's it. Thanks so much for watching until the end. Best wishes, and I see you next time.